Liz Lewinson is an award-winning author, speaker, teacher, technologist, strategic planner, a feminist. We talk about the importance of meditation. She has a Buddhist background. The two great things that she promotes to inspire inspiration, to seek inspiration are both meditation and martial arts. To take a martial art. It's a fascinating discussion. She describes these visions that she saw that brought her to a certain place where she could write some of her books. But a fascinating discussion with Liz Lewinson on meditation and Buddhism, and of course, seeking inspiration. Hope you enjoy it. Thanks for listening. Hi, I'm Joey Pinz. People ask me, how did I lose 130 pounds? The quick answer is always discipline. I started my business, wasn't paying attention to my health, was eating too much, drinking too much sweets. My daughter was born. Next thing I know, I'm pre-diabetic, I have hypertension. I knew something had to change. Discipline. I, like many of you, have faced many challenges in your career, in your family, in your life, in your faith. How did you attack them? How did you approach them? How did you solve them, hopefully? It all had to have some degree of discipline. I'm also asked, how did you found and start a tech business that lasted over 25 years? Discipline. I was committed to it, enjoyed technology, didn't enjoy some aspects of it, but knew it was necessary. Discipline. Our podcast mission: how do we use discipline to better ourselves and society? Join me, please, as I talk to interesting people and discuss how they use discipline in their family, in their passion, in their careers, and how it helped them. Our podcast vision: growth through learning from others. Joey Pinz Discipline Conversations. It'll be light and serious. Join us, please. Thank you for consideration.
On the screen. I've never used Zencaster before, always Zoom. I've always been a Zoom person.
I say, yeah, we did a little research and we found this to be pretty reliable so far.
Really, that's I might check it out because well, what I'd really like is to be able to have multiple voices at the same time. Have you
Uh,
found anything that could do that?
this can do that. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. I
Wow.
do not get paid from them. It's just we've used it now for about, 12, 15 interviews, and it's done quite well. Yeah.
You mean we could sing together?
Well, I don't have the best voice, but we could try.
Yeah, let's give it a test. That's just I'm just curious because I do this thing where people we try to sing together and we haven't been able to on Zoom.
Yeah,
It sounds
because
terrible.
this this actually downloads something at your end, and it'll create the WAV file and send it up when it's done, and it creates mine as well, and then it combines them at the end. So we actually have individual files.
Oh, okay. I don't know then if it'll work. Yeah.
It might. I mean, what would you like to sing?
Um, wow, that's a tough one.
Yellow Submarine.
Okay, let's start.
We
We
all
all
live
live in
in
a
the
yellow
yellow
submarine,
submarine. The yellow
yellow
submarine.
submarine,
The yellow
yellow submarine.
submarine.
I think it sounds okay. I
It
mean,
does. And according to the
because on
chart
Zoom
here,
it wouldn't work.
yeah, according to the chart, it got us both. Very
Um,
nice. Yeah. Liz Lewinson, what a pleasure to talk to you today. What
Same
an
here. We've made a
absolute
big technical leap for me.
what a great. I mean, you're an author, you're a speaker, you're a teacher, you're a technologist, you're a strategic planner, you're a feminist. I've watched. It seems like I know you so well already. You're very friendly. Let's start with Buddhism and
Okay.
how that's really. It seems like it re-navigated your life.
Yes. Well, first of all, I will say that I have a root guru, and he was the person who said that anyone who meditates is a Buddhist.
Interesting.
That's a pretty broad definition. Um, Basically, I think the principle behind that is that in Buddhism, and really many religions, but Buddhism emphasizes this, is that there's a way to go beyond your current state of awareness, which is kind of limited, and experience much higher truly higher dimensions of awareness that are much more beautiful, more timeless. And it's actually the inner happiness most people are seeking. They just don't know how to find it. And it's attainable. So that's sort of the Four Noble Truths of Buddhism, which is the core of Buddhism, which is that it starts with life is suffering. And that means that even if you're not suffering, you're suffering compared to what's possible.
Hmm.
And that the reason for that is all your aversions, things you don't like, and your desires, the things you want. And there is a way to get beyond it. And that way is, truthfully, it's ultimately meditation, even though meditation has so many different forms. So I got started with that. And I, part of my daily life, meditation and mindfulness, I would say, since that's the core of Buddhism, that's part of my daily routine.
And just the act of meditation. I started it for a while and then I kind of got back. There's a lot of great apps that are available that kind of walk you through it.
Right.
And do you? I talked to somebody about metaphysics last week, Aaron Patton. How close is what you're talking about with meditation and Buddhism close to metaphysics?
It's very close. Metaphysics is, as I understand it, a term, a high level term for all spiritual pursuits. So whether you're, Jewish or Christian or Baha'i or, um, is, Islamic, it doesn't matter if you have this pursuit of a metaphysical understanding is beyond the physical. So
Mhm.
it's like above metaphysical. And that's where meditation takes you pretty quickly, actually, once you stick with it. Sorry,
It's just like I
this is
haven't.
called
Yeah.
discipline. This thing is that you do have to give it a chance, and I would say you have to even try twice a day to meditate because your mind. Remember, meditation is just really a term for focus. In meditation, whatever you learned, whatever way you learned, it was probably focusing on something. Is that correct? In your case,
I
did you
th-
learn a focus technique?
I remember them specifically saying, "How do you stop all the thoughts from going through your head?" And they described it as if you're standing on the side of the road and you're seeing traffic go by, and those are your
Right.
thoughts.
If you can get distance from your thought.
That's
Well,
right.
the truth is that's really hard.
Mm.
So, most meditation techniques, and I have encountered dozens of them, are about learning to focus intently on one thing or one image or one sound or your breath as intently as you can, because when you can do that intently, automatically all the other chatter and all your other thoughts are not there because you're focused right on that one thing. And it just makes sense that if you can focus and learn to focus intently on one thing, then you can let go into stillness. So I would say that what you heard in that description is, definitely an end result of meditating. I personally think I might find that difficult when if I had started that way. I started by learning just one thing, a mantra, and that was my earliest exposure. It was transcendental meditation. They teach one mantra. It's not the only way to meditate. And I learned a lot from TM, but I did go beyond it at one point. And the other thing is that in that at that time, I don't know if they still say this. They said, just say your mantra a couple times in your mind, and then when other thoughts come, just don't mind. Sooner or later, go back to your mantra. And the only difference I would say to that and the way I teach now is that thoughts are not release of stress, which is what was said back then.
Hmm.
They just mean you're still beginning. You are needing to learn your focus. So back to the idea of the beneficial aspect of some discipline, which everyone's so capable of, and which we actually benefit from, is that you focus during your meditation. That's your time to focus. And that's the technique you would learn in. You can go online, honestly, and find so many different techniques that will just do that. I can teach on the show. I'm happy to share. It's not a secret. Focus on something high. Don't just focus on your pencil, but you can focus on a pen or a pencil or a object on your desk if you want.
It's really that
It's
easy.
it's still teaching the mind. You're teaching the mind a tool, okay? And that's what meditation is that the tool is to become focused on something so that ultimately you let go into stillness. Stillness is the objective. And I find that meditation is that technique. And then during the day, meditation is usually coupled these days with mindfulness. Mindfulness means that, let's say you're just on a tear of everything's going wrong.
We've
I
all had
actually had
those.
a few hours like that yesterday. I got set off, and suddenly, instead of being having quite a lovely day, I was having everything's going wrong, and I actually was able to just catch myself and say, "Well, let's be mindful here. Let's just take some deep breaths." Breathing is just a wonderful way to become mindful immediately, and I know many teachers who say to start your meditation with like up to 9, just mindful breathing, just breathe in and out and focus on it. Right away, you're not thinking about a lot of other things, right? You're thinking about your breath.
Right.
And so I did a few breaths. This was me being mindful. I just did this beautiful Tibetan mantra, which is very well known. Om Mani Padme Hum. I did a few Om Mani Padme Hums. That, by the way, is a wonderful mantra if you want to meditate with that.
Hmm.
Om Mani Padme Hum. Start with that. Just focus, but you can do it also during your mindful practice of a day and just see if stopping that um, chain. It's usually a chain reaction from something that's deep inside you that's been there since your babyhood.
Hmm.
People around you are probably reacting that way, and suddenly you're in that spot. If you take some deep breaths and then you focus on a mantra, that's a very powerful mantra, Om Mani Padme Hum from Tibet. What it means is that it means the jewel is in the lotus, which means that everything you see around you is actually nirvana or enlightenment. It's a manifestation of it, but we're too like messed up in a way to see it. So anyway, so I did that yesterday, and I found I could come right back to a very balanced place. So maybe it's not ecstatic, but maybe it's definitely not depressed. It's balanced, and that's another object and goal of meditation. Is that you'll find that as you gain this focus ability and your mind starts to naturally tap into this inner place of greater stillness, it comes into your life more and more. And I found that after about 3 weeks. And one of the beautiful things about transcendental meditation, they do charge for it. And a lot of times when you've paid some money for something, you're going to darn well get your
Right.
value out of it, right? So I remember they said to meditate twice a day for 20 minutes. And I religiously meditated twice a day for 20 minutes. And for the first 3 weeks, I felt nothing at all. And then I just remember about maybe 3.5 weeks in of being disciplined and just doing that twice a day, not feeling anything, but just going on faith. And I had paid money for it, so I definitely wanted to do it. Um, I was able to really, well, it wasn't even able, it just had this natural sense of something bubbling up inside of me. It was like a fountain that I had literally never experienced before. And it was like this freshness. It was a sense of energy or rejuvenation that was metaphysical. It was beyond physical. It was a sensation. And I felt fantastic. And I knew it was from that because I never had experienced anything like this before. And that encouraged me to continue my meditation practice. And of course, now, although I don't meditate in that way anymore at all, it has proved to be so amazingly true that meditation leads you to states of mind and awareness which is it's timeless. It's beautiful, and it is beyond any. If someone handed me a Bentley and a mansion, I don't know what I'd do with it, but let's say I really wanted that stuff. It wouldn't compare
Hmm.
to what I felt inside and have felt and continue. And the more you feel that way, the more it kicks in. So that's why you can really um, have these amazing states of awareness through meditation.
It's
Does that
absolutely
make
true.
sense?
Yeah, and I always hear about it. I always hear about how, meditation is always the kind of path, and even breathing is kind of the path to this. And
Yeah.
I was doing some of your chanting on some of your
Oh,
videos as
chanting.
well. So how is that a departure from meditation? I mean, that's vocal.
Chanting?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, chanting is another beautiful form of focus. Actually, I love chanting. I love chanting. Um, my friends and I get together like for social purposes and we chant beautiful high,
Wow.
again, mantras together. And chanting is a well known, very ancient, very sacred way of elevating your awareness. So, in fact, one thing you can do is chant different these sounds, sacred sounds, for a little while, and then if you close your eyes, you'll find it very easy to feel mental stillness
Hmm.
after you chant. And as a tip, again, before you meditate and take these deep breaths, you can also chant before you meditate. You can do Om, AUM, do that 7 or 10 times before you close your eyes, and you kind of giving yourself a head start. So it's also nice to chant sometimes at the end. And um, I just think chanting is lovely. So chanting is a way to get you started in your meditation, and it's a form of meditation. So meditation, and there are so many apps now. I would say for me, especially as you continue to meditate, so a guided app, for instance, they walk, say nice things, and you're kind of listening. I am 50-50 on that
Hmm.
because I would rather see people just go into pure stillness. And I also feel you're completely tuning in to the voice and the energy of the person. So, as you meditate more, you're going to become more intuitive. I mean, I'm sure you're already quite intuitive, but I find that I want my meditation practice. I can sit and meditate in a group with eyes closed, and but the meditation practice to me is personal. So I am 50-50 on guided meditation, but if it helps you, go for it. It might get you to a state where you kind of go, oh, aha, I see that I didn't have much thought in my mind while this was happening. Once you have these experiences, it's like other things, it's kind of stored inside you and you won't forget it. Your body doesn't forget it. Your mind does not forget it. You can go back.
Fascinating. Getting back to the chanting for a moment, what's the difference between chanting and us singing Yellow Submarine moments ago?
Well, when you sit, you're not saying anything aloud. So when I chant, um, and there's many beautiful mantras. In fact, many times I've just gone online and I've said, um, you know, in Hinduism and Tibetan Buddhism in particular, they're big, wonderful use of mantras. So sounds, and they're all Sanskrit. And Sanskrit is an ancient language. And in Sanskrit, it is said that the sound is exactly the vibration of what is there.
Hmm.
So, for example, there is in Hinduism, in the India pantheon, there's a goddess of beauty and uh, wealth, but also harmony. And her, they call her Lakshmi. And her mantra is Sring, Sring. So it said if you chant Sring, I'll just Sring, 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 you're manifesting the vibration and quality of this goddess Lakshmi.
Hmm.
This is just one example. And you can go online and say, and ask, say, what are the different qualities of beauty or harmony in Hinduism? I mean, you're going to be able to track this down. There's recordings, you can find it. The difference, though, is that one's chanting aloud, you're creating a kind of energetic aura vibration around yourself, and it's beautiful. I remember a teacher I studied with. He said to chant Sring 108 times before you meditated,
Wow.
and he just wanted his students at that time to build up this sort of quality of harmony and beauty. And
108.
I did, and it was lovely. It was really, really lovely. And here's the other thing you find, the little tips here. I don't have one with me, but if you go to some nice new agey type store, they have what's called a mala, M-A-L-A, mala, and a mala has 108 beads. So if you wanted to chant anything 108 times, we're really getting into it here,
Yeah.
into the tech of stuff. But 108 times is a sacred number in Eastern philosophy. And so if you were to chant 108 times, you just go bead by bead on your mala. And when you get around it, you've done 108.
I see.
So it's lovely to be, it's like a whole beautiful world there of very ancient knowledge of how to lift your awareness. And there are different teachers. Sometimes you can go to just a yoga class, and some of this is introduced. Uh, and uh, but back to meditation, I'm a nuts and bolt meditator. In a I sit and meditate twice a day. I find it easier to meditate usually in the morning because it's without distraction yet. And I do it before the day starts so I'm not distracted, because once you get going, it's harder to sit down, right? It is. So we're we really, I get up, freshen up a bit, cold water in the face, do maybe some of that deep breathing, and then I sit to meditate. And now I do have some other mantras that I use, and I find now though that I barely use them
Hmm.
because it's been a long time, and now I can focus more and just go into stillness. But I have to say it's taken a long, long time because our minds are not used to it. And we're all quite psychic, even if we don't know that we are. And a lot of times we pick up the thoughts and feelings of others. So this is, as you know, a very agitated time, and people are general are just completely out there and worried, and um, I think we're all a little shell shocked. So I would say this is more important time than ever to meditate. But I also wouldn't be surprised to say to you and whoever is listening that don't be surprised if you're not just going to settle into a pure still meditation, but the fact that you're trying to focus, and it is good to focus on something high and more on the metaphysical sacred side than some little, object of, because medicine, they'll teach you to meditate, but they'll say, oh, they forget the whole spiritual side of it. They say, you can meditate on anything. True, you can meditate on a water bottle, but
Hmm.
why would you want to when you
Very
could
interesting.
meditate using a beautiful sound or mantra?
It's funny you mentioned 108. That's often my golf score. No, that's just a joke. But you also advocate martial arts.
Yes. Okay, good point. So, people think Buddhists are pacifists. That's not true.
Hmm. They're not.
The Buddhists invented the martial arts. There's a great story about it that this teacher Bodhidharma went to some monastery. This was a Zen monastery in Japan, and all the monks were all lazy and spaced out. The opposite of discipline, just very, who knows? They couldn't meditate. Spaced out is not meditation. Focus, being tight with your life, that's meditation. And so apparently he gets there, he's all spaced out. So he is the one who taught them martial arts. And it originated with this teacher, Bodhidharma. And Bodhidharma taught these monks to be great martial artists. And there are throughout the world monks who are great martial artists. And in fact, if you read about Bruce Lee, even he was a very spiritual person.
Hmm.
And in some of the original kinds of martial arts, they include a sort of meditation practice, even in when you go. So the reason martial arts is cool is it's a different way to coordinate mind and body. And it will help you with your meditation because part of the way you're going to learn to meditate is not just the one time you're sitting to meditate. It takes energy to meditate. It takes a certain kind of mental
Discipline.
um, inner chi or power to
Hmm.
meditate. And that comes from a bunch of things that raise your energy, things like breaking your routines, things like martial arts, which is learning something new. I can't recommend it enough
Hmm.
highly to men and women. I particularly recommend it for women because if you as a woman were to go and take even 6 months of martial arts, and it doesn't really matter which martial art, it could be karate, it could be taekwondo, could be aikido. Again, I'm whatever appeals, whatever is the one you're going to actually go to, just like meditation.
Right.
Find the studio probably near you where the people seem nice and there's nobody macho. This is not about machismo, it's about humility. And it's about learning a different way to use your body. So, martial arts, I can't say enough about it. Very practical. And within the first two or three classes, it's just like learning to meditate. It's a new way, different way to use your body. Lots of hips, lots of this and that, shoulders that you haven't used before. But your body, as it is capable of being a fantastic martial artist.
Hmm.
And you'll probably get it after three or four classes. So, martial arts is very conducive to assisting you with this mind body coordination that helps your mind become aware that there's these new transpositions and things that it can be doing and learning. And so yeah, you get some great synchronicity between martial arts and meditating well. Very natural connection as well as
Fascinating.
practical.
And yeah, it requires, of course, discipline. Now, I'm fascinated, and I've seen you talk about this, but I want to ask, and I want to talk about these visions that you saw that kind of inspired you to write these books.
Well, the visions I had concerned, if you're talking about my book, some the power of the loving man and men women meditation and power, the vision I had is very interesting, and it had been after I'd been to see a teacher and had a really high meditation, and came home. This was actually in Germany, and then I came home and I had been wondering because my root teacher talked about the power of women as being much vaster than anyone realized, including almost every single woman, and that it had been repressed for millennia and be repressed for so long that women themselves have begun to feel far less powerful than they are, even though now it's turning around a bit.
Good.
And men had come to see themselves as sort of rightfully dominating or in control. And all of this had completely overturned the world, completely. So, in a very harmful way, that women are natural leaders and this had been suppressed. So I knew this. And then when I came home from this very lovely retreat, just spontaneously, I had an inner question. It was, what is the symbol, like a visual symbol of this power of women? And what is the visual symbol of this loving kindness and humility that men have innately? Because that was the other aspect of what my my root guru talked about. So my teacher, the first teacher I've had. So I walk in, and all of a sudden and this was a very physical experience. I found myself looking at this huge, huge tsunami wave. And I'm telling you that this was real because I could actually feel this moisture from it.
Wow.
And it
Now you were
was
inside? I'm sorry
above.
to interrupt.
I was inside my apartment, but it was like sometimes you can when you have what's called a seeing, you're actually transposed. Your reality is momentarily or however long it's so visceral. And I'm sure that some people who you talk to, just they're spontaneous. There's nothing that I
Wow.
would know how to make this happen.
Was it
But
three-dimensional?
yeah, it's real. It's not a dream. It's like you're really there. And I was really standing in front of this huge tsunami wave. It was totally risen. And it was the answer to my question. What does the power of women feel like? Because if
Hmm.
you can imagine, you're safe now, you're in your studio, but you're standing in front of this wave before it's about to break. Can you imagine what that would feel like
Wow.
if you were to feel the power of it and that it just stretches on endlessly and is roaring? And I went to myself, oh my God, it was power of women was beyond anything that I could imagine. It was the tsunami wave. If you could feel that, that's the inner power of women.
Wow.
And then I had,
Now, how did you link? I'm sorry to interrupt. How did you link the question that you had about women to this?
because I specifically had that inner question.
I see.
That was why. It was because I actually, I don't know why, after all this travel and I'd come into my foyer of my apartment, but I just had this inner feeling. What does the power of women look like? And it's also because my teacher had talked about it so much. I just was curious if you were to draw it or make it a symbol of something. So that's how I
Hmm.
believe it came about. It was like an inner yearning of sorts to have an answer. And that's, I believe, how that vision happened. But then after I had seen that wave and experienced it, I followed up with another thought: is what does this power look like of men that is loving kindness, which has also been repressed, as I'm sure you know, loving, really being loving and kind. I mean, not just a little, being really loving and kind, and also this humility. What does it look like? And this was a little surprising to me because that's when I had this vision of like a beautiful lattice work of a diamond just stretching out forever. It's like all these connected white light um, squares almost, or like facets of a diamond. And I, because my teacher had talked about a more grid-like energy that's in men, whereas women was much more expansive
Hmm.
and literally waving, more like a butterfly wing type thing. I thought I sensed immediately I was looking at a visual image of what a powerful inner core of male nature looks like. Now, having said this, what I want to emphasize now, and probably in the book that I will next write that unites this whole topic, is that all of us have male and female inside of us. We're both. And if you look at the pictures of most religious leaders, actually, they look male and female. They don't look male.
Hmm.
They don't look purely female either. They look very balanced. And however, today in our current society, most men need to work on developing their inner power, which is kindness, a kind of gentleness and humility, a kind of love, really bring out their love mojo. And that's why I talk in the book, the loving power, the power of the loving man, to just practice with small things, because men have had them so busted from their, usually grade school on, for being really sweet or kind. And this may be changing now in some nice social circles, but most of the planet still, the boys are brought up one way and the girls another. And this isn't right. We have both. And when a man knows that his loving kindness has been way repressed, it's one of the ways to build up inner power is to start to express it more. And it doesn't have to be romantic love. This can be love for any number of things. And you can start, as I point out, start easily. And someone I spoke to said he started easily. He started loving his car.
Hmm.
But it worked. He started actually feeling, he felt his heart centering. He
My
would go, I
goodness.
love you in your car. You this, just what I love about you. And all of a sudden, he felt this love. And then he went on to, there were a bunch of birds visiting his apartment balcony. He went on to the birds, and he was really getting high on loving these birds. And then he was already sort of on a current where he was just, and people were noticing this extra loving kindness around him in his office. And it was highly, highly appreciated. It was not the reaction he had feared. And I think men fear most the reaction from other men. That's what I learned.
Certainly.
Is that true? Yeah.
To a case, I'm a little bit different. I have daughters. I spend a lot of time with my mother after my parents separated. But yeah, I guess there's a little bit of that. I'm not sure if it's a male or female thing. They just don't want to be chastised by peers. Perhaps there's
Yeah.
some masculinity in there. Now, had you had other visions before this?
Yes. Mostly, interestingly, mostly past life type visions
Hmm.
where, again, you'll find that people who've had those things can't program them. They're just suddenly, uh, you remember something, that something sparks it. Um, I remember that one of my past life visions was from an earlier time in Egypt, because apparently there was an older civilization in Egypt, not the one we know now, that had these things that were mystery schools, they were called. And that was probably more the time of the earlier pyramids and stuff, because we think there's probably pyramids over pyramids. There's so
Right.
much there. History, you have to understand, goes back hundreds of thousands of years, not just a couple of thousand years. So in this one, I was on this it, little tiny tall pedestal, and I was standing at the edge of it, and it was literally, I must have walked out on it, but it was thousands of feet above a crowd that was below, and they were all chanting Isis, Isis,
Hmm.
and Ra. It was Egypt.
Yeah.
And
Interesting.
anyway, I'm standing on the edge of the pedestal, the spoke, and I'm like, my hands are out, and there was a teacher in the very center who I recognized. He was a woman then. And I was radiating out some energy of harmony, again, just nurturing.
Hmm.
And I was there in that vision. It wasn't like some veil, and it wasn't like a dream where you wake up. It was actually being there. So I I've had different visions like that, but they're spontaneous. And I would say that most of the time, and I rely for navigation and balance on just my intuition. The more you trust your intuition, which will grow with your meditation practice, that's beautiful. And you can sort of see a little bit more into situations, and you get a little bit more helpful information about some of the people that you interact with. They may be interacting with you in puzzling ways that you just don't understand. And if you step back and you use your intuition and look a little bit more deeply, you usually can understand a little bit what's pressuring them, or pushing them or motivating them, and that can lead you to different actions, different conclusions. Another quality of Buddhism is compassion.
Hmm.
Compassion is, uh, it said that wisdom and compassion are two main qualities. And again, this male female uh, thing that we have both, compassion is attributed to the male side
Hmm.
and wisdom to the female side. I am using more the words of power to the female side, this energy, this internal energy, and um, loving kindness on the male side. It's not too far apart as we meditate more. And even if you don't meditate, you start becoming aware that, yeah, I have both inside of me. There was no need ever to repress one or the other. This is a very happy, cool thing in your life that's going to add lots of dimension to your life. But the main thing is that we do have both. And so the intuition that you develop will help you navigate with that. You see different compassionate ways you can interact with people.
It fascinates me, and it really does. So I don't want to keep harping. So but with these visions, so your eyes were not closed, you were open, and you're walking, and you
No,
engage into this.
no. When these things happen, I just call it a seeing. You're just something usually triggers it.
I see.
In this case, since this was this ancient Egyptian past life, I was triggered by opening this pamphlet, this booklet I received that had all these Egyptian hieroglyphics
Hmm.
around it. And I'm just bang, I'm off in this other place, experiencing this other thing that was so,
Wow.
it was just a reminder of some other time. You know, and then there's this whole thing, the Far Eastern religions, and if you read about it, early Christianity too, believed in reincarnation before it was all knocked out. And that's interesting too, a great perspective giver. It is always the teaching that this is the life you should focus on. So, even if you were whatever you were in the past, it might influence what you are now. I think that's happening a lot these days. But at the same time, you're in this life now. This is the one where you get to work stuff out. This is the one where you're going to make progress or not. But this concept of reincarnation, to me, there's nothing strange about it. It's more just makes sense. It adds to a sort of depth, but I personally don't think about it except there's interesting ways you can think about your life, and you don't notice it too much when you're younger, earlier in the incarnation, but as you go along and you start to see patterns and you start to see things repeating themselves,
Hmm.
I'm starting to take note of that in myself because I'm going, hey, if this is happening to me and over and over again, or this feels like it's a pattern. And in Sanskrit, it's called the samskara. It means you're born with it. You've had it in the past. You didn't work it out before. It's going to keep happening. So it's even the more wonderful reason to sort of practice a little bit of awareness or self discipline or self knowledge, whatever you want to call it, to say, stepping back is how you observe it and say, wait, this is happening over and over. Maybe this is just something I came into this life with. Maybe I need to be very serious about looking at it with just passion. Another good tool is just just be dispassionate for a little while
Hmm.
and try to look at something
Are you describing
and
deja
see if
vu?
it's going to follow you along or if it's time for you to change.
Exactly. It sounds like deja vu.
Deja vu is can actually be, yes, deja vu is often an instance. In fact, all these things where you hear of instances where people say, oh, I met someone and I felt like I've known them all
Hmm.
my life.
Hmm.
You probably have.
Certainly.
So um, my teacher said many of the people who are just drawn to meditation or willing to try it, they're souls who've already had not just a few thousand, but maybe 30,000 or 40,000 lives, a
Wow.
lot, which, if you think about it as time is going back much further than we mostly think, is possible. And it's an interesting view of time. And I always think when I read about today, because more and more people are open about it, like a young woman who at age 4 or 5 gets that she's feels strongly she's a man, or a young boy who at age, again usually by age 4 or 5, has it, no, I'm actually a woman. I What they're feeling, I believe, is that in their past lives they were the other gender
I
for
see.
quite a few lives, and now they come in this one and it's new. And my Buddhist teacher said that samskara of sexual preference doesn't just doesn't quickly necessarily flip
Hmm.
from one life to the other as you're born in a different body. So that's a very real feeling if a child feels like they're a different gender. And then that's, but they were born in the other gender. So that's an interesting lesson for them to figure out. I think that there's still this, you have both. And so if the female side is power, great. And then understand that your male side, as I'm talking about, is this love, humility. How neat if you can express both. And in terms of your spiritual life, I think you'll find anywhere in the East, there's no judgment at all when teachers are any level of advancement about your sexual preference.
Hmm.
You can be enlightened of any sexual preference.
S-
It doesn't prevent, it's just fine.
yeah, and you talk about that. You say that specifically females have the opportunity to express their vast core power. You want
Right,
females to do that, whereas you want kind of men has to revive their, you say, their innate ability to imbue profound, resonant love into their lives and
right.
worlds. It's very different roles.
It is different roles. And the reason that it's important for this to happen is to bring balance back.
Mm.
So I feel that a truly uh, balanced person, male or female, like I said, has both. But most people, and most of the people I meet still, although I think it's changing in certain parts of society, but we know that a lot of the world is still heavily into repressing women,
Mm.
deeply, horribly into repressing women, and the violence and the cultures which literally systematically repress.
Horrible.
The Here, I think that depends where you are, and it depends which culture you're in, even in the United States.
Hmm.
But I think women need to understand, and they're starting to, okay, they're getting it, that any of the abuse or the repression type actions toward them as is not just being a sexual being, it's a sense of being lower on the food chain. It's a sense of what I think women respond to is this sense of, well, I'm powerful, and so I, as a man, for example, can just be any kind of behavior toward you who are sort of lower. And I
Hmm.
assure you that that was, I don't want to exonerate like Tibetan culture, because for years, or the either Eastern ones, where it was actually written in their scriptures that to be born as a woman was a lower birth,
Wow.
and that's wrong. And that shows me that wherever those scriptures first started out, I bet that wasn't there. And I feel that way about Christianity too, that when Jesus taught, he had women disciples. And if you read some of the literature about that, they were his main disciples.
Hmm.
And then over time, it got repressed. So if you look at almost every aspect, it is very important, yeah, for men not only to express their own loving kindness and humility, but also to respect and nurture and support the power of women. So here in this country, if you look at our political pictures. I look all the time and I'm still shocked to see that power, if you look at the Senate or the or power structure, it's all these older white men, and they tend to be the worst about holding women down. And if you look at really anywhere in the world, there's 3 or 4 women leaders in the entire globe, and
Hmm.
that's wrong. That's an energetic problem. Everything we see, according to my teacher, is a result of that. When you Mother Earth been completely pillaged and raped by this domination and control by the group that actually doesn't do well with power. So if you think of that more constrained grid-like structure, it's not going to be sharp with power. Power is change and fluidity. And I make that point in the book about women, is that how does power actually manifest? We didn't used to see that so clearly, but in this scientific age, power is about rapid movement. The faster things move, the faster your computer goes, the faster it can process information, the more powerful it is. These rockets going into space, utilizing the fastest combustion possible, not even a shadow yet of what's going to be. It's power on a physics, it's change, it's fluidity. And women have that built into their body, much faster change and fluidity. And well, it's that chi, that life force that just goes more like a wave of water, quick movement. Women understand power and they're good at it. And so the principle is that women should lead and men need to help that.
Hmm.
They really do. If they're in an office where there's a woman, she may be holding it back, by the way. She doesn't want to get all the men around her, quote, threatened. She's afraid maybe to show her intense intellect or her perception or fluidity of power because she's, just sort of checking down a lot of the women who did not crack the glass ceiling have had that for a long time. They've just programmed almost to step back a little bit. So I think it's really important for men to completely change their view of women and just say, wow, this is a powerhouse there in every respect,
Hmm.
intellectually, intuitively, perceptively. This woman is capable of helping whatever I want to do, solve problems. And also, there's another thing is women working together with other women. This was, I think, one of the things where it was back even when Hillary ran a little while ago. Oh, she won't get along with it. This is BS of the worst kind. Women, when they get together, especially professional women, women who've now gone through a wave or two, there's so much support.
Hmm.
And women need to be careful not to indulge ever in any of this, backbiting or jealousy, because that is an old, again, past life BS thing when women had to compete in society for what? A man.
Right.
That was the only way they could get ahead. So if they were like you're in a village or a town, there's 2 rich guys, let's just say. Women had to compete for that. And this is over. This is over. And I find that when women get together, the energy is fantastic.
Hmm.
When when the main quality is respect, it's insane. It's fabulous. And so I'm happy whenever I see a woman leader. Uh, to me, a good example is Jacinda Ardern in New Zealand.
Oh,
She's
yes.
smart, she's
Yes.
tough,
She was great.
she's resolute,
Yeah.
she's I think she has male and female qualities beautifully embodied.
I, I
And
remember her speaking at that terrible tragedy at the shooting,
yeah,
probably a year and a half ago now, and her speaking about it. And I was so impressed with her reaction and how she handled that.
Did I miss something? What shooting are you talking?
About a year and a half, there was an Islamic shooting, if I
Oh,
remember
yes,
correctly.
that's right, in that so
Yeah,
she exactly, there was
Christchurch.
a
Yeah.
shooting in a Muslim temple,
Yes.
and she went there in person
Yep.
with her scarf on, and she just hugged people. And I'll tell you, I mean, I think you can feel that. It's
Yeah.
just how much truth there was to that, how much love, compassion, and also within 24 hours, I think maybe 36 hours, they had passed their tough gun laws.
Yes.
So Jacinda, and I saw her because I was living in New Zealand when she was running. It's worth going online and watching Jacinda Ardern debate an opponent.
Wow.
She did not hold back. She is really right there, and this is correct. This is just exactly who women are, and they're that tsunami fully risen. So again, and we have that refined, beautiful diamond kind of exquisiteness. That's the beautiful side, the compassion. So she's Jacinda Ardern is a good example for a woman. Um, I don't have that many good examples for men, but I think maybe Nelson Mandela might be one. And humility, humility was one of his loveliest qualities. That people respected him, and no one walked over him either. He had his training, and he didn't start out that way, right? Because if you read his stories, I just am looking around in my mind for examples, but I feel that the men thing we need to do right now for men in particular, who are the women in your environment? How can you help them be more powerful? Usually, it's where they start. Education has always been a pathway to more power in any society. So, if you are an employer of women who seem to be struggling, how can you help them get educated? One of the best ways to get educated, and that's find is computer science. Get them to their beginning computer programming 6 month training school or 1 year, whatever. They'll be set for the rest of their lives.
Hmm.
You, how can you help people at any stage? If you're working with women at a much higher level of management, then I think that what you want to do is completely encourage those women to be leaders and promote them to those positions. So we'll see what happens in New York with a female governor.
Yes.
And I would love, it just seems that's, you know, I would just like to see women, and it's happening more, that women are running for office more.
Hmm.
They're getting into positions of authority more. But we have to end this, I think, majority of rigid, frankly, white guys who are running this country because they're not doing a good job.
Yes.
And women will do generally a better job, if I may, if I may make a broad statement, with exceptions, of course.
Of
We can
course.
think of some exceptions right away.
So
Because
you
some
recommend.
wacky women are out there.
Absolutely, yeah, of course. So, I mean, your recommendation, it would seem, is begin meditating, take a martial art.
Yeah,
Really, those
that's two
two.
physical things right away, I would say to do. Start meditation, take a martial art, learn about mindfulness, so that during the day you have some recourse to balance. And remember that uh, none of this means you can't have a beautiful, fabulous time.
Right.
You can still take your vacations, still have your loving moments with family, but I think you'll find that the more you can add these elements, again, meditation, mindfulness, and martial arts, you can have an incredible life, male and female.
Meditation, mindfulness, and martial
Martial
arts.
arts.
Oh, sounds like
You,
the
what a cool life.
yeah, those three right there. Yeah, yeah, very cool. Liz Lewinson, you are absolutely delight. I learned so much from you before, and now that I've talked to you, I really really appreciate your time. How can people get in touch with you? How can they learn about
Well,
your webs?
actually, I have a website, lizlewinson.com. and it's a contact page, and I always get right back to people. And I'm on Facebook and I'm on Instagram, and I read my messages, and I try to keep people current with what I'm up to there. And right now, I'm not teaching any regular classes, but I will be in the
Mm,
next month or two, I hope. So if you're interested, just add me to the, go to my website. I think that's the best contact place, lizlewinson.com. And go and fill in that little contact page or sign up for the mail list. That
fantastic.
would be best. And if you want to learn, just go check out my books. They're all on Amazon.
The Power
I
of the
think you'll
Living
enjoy
Man,
those.
Women,
Power,
Meditation, and Power, and American Buddhist Rebel.
American Buddhist Rebel. That was
Yeah.
about the Buddhist teacher I studied with, and you'll learn a hell of a lot from that.
Very,
Yeah,
very interesting. Well, thank you so much for your time today. I really, really
sure.
appreciate it. Your delight, and you're doing
Mutual
great
pleasure.
things. Yeah. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Thank you. Bye.